Gen V is markedly different from The Boys in its overall characterization, in that there's multiple characters in it that want to become actual heroes and not VOT International's definition of the term. Andre Anderson and Marie Moreau immediately come to mind, but we'd argue that the biggest hero in the series so far is a girl whose whole thing is throwing up to activate her powers. Emma Mayer was introduced as the internet-savvy girl-next-door type freshman roommate of the lead character in episode 1, but since then she has gone on to become something much more akin to Starlight, especially with their shared mommy issues. She has internet fame as Little Cricket, 1 million followers on social media, which is the kind of thing that VOT really likes from their soups, but deep inside, she's ashamed of her powers, not because she has them, but because of how they work. So what exactly is this power, and how does it actually work? We'll answer all that and more in this video. But before we begin with the content, if you like the stuff that we do and want more badass detailed video essays on all your favorite franchises, then like this video and share it with your friends. It helps us reach more marvelous viewers like you. Now let's get on with a breakdown.
Here. That's my gerbil, David Crusoe. And it's about to go down.
But first, a bit of a background why Emma Mayer is called Little Cricket. Emma Mayer is introduced as the bubbly, ready-for-anything roommate of Marie Moreau in the first episode of Gen V, but you might have missed her in the first shot because she was ant-sized in it. Emma has a past that is quite similar to Starlight's. She has a pageant mom who micromanages every aspect of her life outside of college, and that much is enough to make the two of them soul sisters in our eyes. Emma has been a VOT kid since she can remember, going to talent shows and filming content to get as far ahead as she could in her life as a suit. She knew she was never going to get a massive city contract as a crime fighter on account of her powers, so she dedicated herself to making the best out of a pretty scummy situation and started her own YouTube channel called One-Sized with Little Cricket. That name, by the way, is probably paying homage to another soup with size-shifting abilities, Termite. Hashtag RIP Termite. Emma has been documenting her own life for content since she was a young girl, and her show sees her have fun-sized adventures like fighting her pet gerbil, David Caruso. We're sure it started out as a fun activity for Emma as well, but as she comes into her own as a woman, she starts feeling embarrassed about her powers. Shrinking isn't exactly something someone calls a superpower unless you're the scientist from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and Emma is painfully aware of that at all times. She loathes herself because she constantly reads the negative comments posted all across her social media platforms, not taking into account the fact that she's one of the few people on campus with 1 million followers. Emma puts on a brave and bubbly front, but she defaults to substance use when she feels a situation getting out of hand, and worst of all, she has already accepted that she will never be a meaningful hero. Throughout Gen V, her arc seems to be accepting herself and growing stronger as a result of it, because unlike other superheroes we know of that can manipulate her physical size at will, Emma cannot, and the reason is intrinsically linked to her anatomy. Emma's insane digestive system. How do her powers work? When we think of a character that has shrinking as its superpower, we think of things like subatomic particles changing their internal biochemistry, or them getting zapped with a beam their dad made as a secret experiment, which they found when they were horsing around in the attic one day. Emma Mayer is unique in this regard because her size-shifting abilities are completely reliant on her digestive system. You see, there is an activation requirement for Emma's abilities to kick in, and that's her losing calories from her body real quick. We learned in the first episode that Emma has to force herself to vomit whenever she wants to get smaller. Each time she throws up, she gets smaller until she reaches her desired size as Little Cricket. She has a whole system set up for it too, where she puts towels underneath her knees a la Gus Fring before dumping out the contents of her belly to activate her superpowers. But hang on, we're here you ask. If she has to throw up every time to get smaller, then how does she get bigger again? Well, unlike Antman, who uses pimp particles to control his size, and the Atom, who harnesses the energy of a white dwarf star to go subatomic and back, Emma's size-shifting abilities depend on her digestive system, which means that if she has to lose calories to get smaller, then she has to gain calories to get bigger. Her physical metabolism is so fast that it digests whatever she eats in moments and brings her back to her normal size within a few minutes, as opposed to the 6 to 8 hours it takes for us to actually digest food. This means that if she goes small or big, she doesn't exactly feel hungry or stuffed because of it, although if she doesn't eat or drink anything for too long, she will obviously pass out due to hunger hunger and dehydration as any normal person would. No, instead her powers seem to be based completely on the number of calories she takes into her body, as evidenced by a conversation she has with her mom. When Emma's pageant mom arrives at God U for Professor Brink's memorial, she comments on Emma's size, claiming she looked bigger than usual, and asked her if she was keeping track of her food intake like she'd taught her to. Now, Emma doesn't look fat in that scene, which would be the regular person's interpretation of Mrs. Mayer's inquiry. What that leaves us to think is that Emma was literally bigger than her normal size, maybe by a few centimeters, and that tracking her diet to monitor her calorie intake is how she goes about having a normal life. But then that raises the question, what happens if she eats an In-N-Out on salad night? Well, we found out the answer to that question in episode 4. How big can Emma get? The answer? Bigger than you think. Now, usually Emma only eats food as a means to return to her regular size and for sustenance, of course. But what happens when she eats food at her normal size? The answer? She gets bigger. How much bigger? Well, Little Cricket would give the Titan shifters from Attack on Titan a run for their money. We'll leave it at that. If Emma has to lose calories in order to shrink, it only makes sense that she would grow in size when she hogs like a pig. And that's exactly what she did at Dr. Cardoso's home, stuffing her face full of spaghetti and other calorie-dense foods before growing to the size of a suburban home. It took Emma a few minutes to get there, and she had to probably eat a lot of Cardoso's husband's cooking, but by the time she was done, she was about as big as a 2-story home in the suburbs. We say that because she was crouched over trying to calm Sam down, and even then, she nearly reached the height of the first level of Cardoso's 2-story home. We're sure if she stood up straight, she'd match the house's height. Now, considering that an average suburban home can be anywhere between 5 to 7 meters tall, we can put Emma's height in her gigantic form at anywhere between 18 to 25 feet, if not more. There is nothing in the series that says she might not get bigger if she keeps on eating. This is a fictional tale, so things like the square cube law are already out of play. Sam is a guy whose whole thing is super strength. He's so powerful that he can disembowel people with relative ease, and he gives the phrase shoving a fist so far up one's ass that it helps them brush their teeth a rather literal interpretation. Despite that, Emma was able to basically subdue him with a single punch and takedown move, so this tells us that her strength, at least, certainly increases with her size. Theoretically, if she kept eating endlessly, she would grow endlessly, which makes us rather glad that she's not Matter Eater Lad from the Legion of Superheroes. That guy can eat literally anything in the universe, including the friggin' Miracle Machine, which is powered by the same thing that powers the Lantern Rings and is trapped within the strongest material in the known multiverse in the 30th century and beyond. If Matter Eater Lad gained size like Emma did every time he ate something, there is no telling how large he would grow, because he can literally eat anything endlessly and his bod metabolizes food instantaneously, which means he can eat tons of food in a matter of seconds. Emma can only eat as much as she can stomach, so hypothetically, if she were to feast at a buffet and not throw up, she could reach heights in excess of 100 meters. He only ate food prepared for 4 people, and probably not even all of it, and yet she grew as tall as roughly 20 feet. If she were fitted with a machine that regulated her digestive system whilst giving her an endless supply of the calories, she'd easily beat King Kong in a fight. But at that kind of height, you're no longer bound by your own body's limitations, but rather the environment's. Even if Emma won't fold in on herself and collapse and die because of growing over 100 meters tall, he might pass out immediately due to the extreme change in air pressure or a million other real or made-up reasons. As long as she maintains her height at a level where she can still function, she should be able to kick anyone's ass easily. But speaking of made-up reasons, can Emma shrink to subatomic sizes? One of the main reasons that shrinking as a power sucks in general is because beyond infiltration and espionage, it really doesn't have any other appeal to it. When writers run out of things to do at an ant-sized level, they tend to take things subatomic, like with Antman and the Cosmos or Atom and the Microverse. Emma, however, cannot reduce her size to the level where she becomes as small as an imperceptible particle, and that's down to the way her powers work. See, Antman and Atom have the benefit of hack science to help them get smaller and bigger. Antman uses PIM particles, and Ray Palmer harnesses the power of a literal star to size shift. But Emma's powers work based on her digestive system, and there is no amount of purging that can make your body throw up all of its body fat. We've seen what happens when Emma grows in size. She becomes stronger as her body gains more size. The opposite must be true for when she shrinks, because she has none of that weird mass retention crap that goes on with Ant-Man in the MCU movies, where his ant-sized fist can somehow land a regular-sized human strength punch. We've actually seen Emma nearly pass out in her shrunken size once after a particularly harrowing night because of hunger, and at that point where she should have technically been her smallest ever, she was only slightly smaller than an ant. She did manage to kill a guard in her tiny form by walking through his brain ear to ear, but the insides of a human body are far more delicate than the outsides, and Emma is strong enough to burst through eardrums even at that level. So to answer the question whether Emma can go subatomic or not, no, she can't go that small, because even after throwing up, our bodies retain enough stored energy to keep them running for a long time. To go subatomic, she'd have to go beyond famished, and that's just not possible in our opinion, because she'd die of starvation first or enamel erosion-based embarrassment second. But this brings us to another interesting fact about Emma's powers. Can her clothes shrink in size with her as well? In episode 4, we saw Emma run buck nude onto Dr. Cardoso's backyard after increasing her size, presumably because her clothes no longer fit her body. Yet most of her tiny-sized scenes show her with what looks like her little cricket costume, a multicolored tank top, track shorts, and yellow boots. So does she have clothes that only shrink in size and not expand? Did she forget to pack her expansion suit in a rush because saving Sam was kind of a last-minute decision in episode 4? Or does she just have to be naked whenever she changes her size? The answer is the last of the three. Sadly for her, the little cricket costume we see her wear in the first episode and when she saved Sam, that's exactly what it is, an accessory for her YouTube show. It helps that it can double as her stealth op combat suit, but the entire thing is tailor-made to a specific size that Emma has to first shrink to, and then put on. She didn't have any clothes on in episode 4 while calming Sam down, probably because there are no clothes for a situation like that. And the sadder part is, we don't even think it's possible to create a suit that shrinks and grows the same way Emma does, because the factors involved in her powers are far more inconsistent than with, say, Ant-Man's suit. Ant-Man's costume is specifically created with material that is compatible with the abilities of the Pym particles, but Emma literally shrinks as she pukes, and timing vomits and expecting consistency is madness. This is why she has to get nude when she purges, because there's a real risk that she might suffocate underneath her clothes as she keeps shrinking in size. The same goes for creating a suit that grows every time she swallows food, because while her body might be able to instantly metabolize it and grow in size, that must depend on how calorific a particular food source is, because at one point Emma refuses eating from a packet of snacking nuts, and those are known to be particularly calorie dense. Even Mr. Fantastic's suit only accounts for his stretching abilities, which, while admittedly exceptional, are not the same as him shrinking to the size of an ant. We don't think Reed can even make himself that compact, and well, it took Vought an 8-figure investment to create a suit that could withstand the temperatures emitted by Golden Boy's thermonuclear body. He was a top-ranked student headed for the 7. Meanwhile, Emma is a mere performance art student whose best bet is to get a reality TV show that actually shows her life for what it is. And speaking of what her life truly is, has changing sizes all the time affected Emma's cognitive abilities? Emma's superpowers are definitely unconventional, even for a world as uniquely twisted as The Boys. We've seen our fair share of bizarre superpowers from the series, like the twins that need to hold hands and say a catchphrase to make their targets explode, or the man with a tentacle penis whom they call Love Sausage, or that one guy at Herogasm who uses his brainwaves to make his partners in the act climax. But Emma's power is unconventional in that it has an activation requirement that is completely out of her control and is making her life miserable every waking moment. See, shrinking characters aren't averse to facing mental health issues like genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist. The physical and mental toll of changing size that many times in a day is enough to burn them out to the point that they need a literal timeout before they can use their powers again. In the case of the Pym particles, unprotected exposure to them can directly cause psychosis, but even controlled yet prolonged exposure to it can pose a threat to one's mental integrity. In the MCU, the characters of Ant-Man and Yellowjacket were separated, but in the comics, they were two personalities of the same man, Hank Pym. Pym is one of the prime examples of the mad genius trope, where his brilliance was so great that he created an entire alter ego to try and compete with himself. We have to imagine the pimp particles played a role in this split personality situation, because at one point, Hank built a device that only he could decisively defeat and then sent it to the Avengers Tower in a mad dash to save his declining reputation. Emma Mayer isn't going crazy because her biochemistry is being exposed to unregistered and possible unstable subatomic particles, but what she's going through is most likely depression, because she might deny it, but she views her powers as an eating disorder, and that makes all the difference when it comes to her self-perception. If Emma's powers were taken out of the equation, she would be suffering from a classic case of bulimia, an eating disorder where people get into a vicious cycle of constantly overeating and then purging themselves of what they've overeaten. Think about it. If your powers were related to how much food you could eat or throw up, wouldn't that make you hate the simple act of eating itself? Calories dictating your size is probably not good for your self-confidence. And how do you think Emma discovered her powers in the first place? Most power manifestation stories in Gen V have been horrifying, like Marie's, who killed her parents when her blood powers manifested, and Kate, who accidentally made her brother abandon her entire family. Emma must have realized she had the power to shrink by vomiting when she vomited particularly hard one day, or when she ate so much that she literally grew in size, and that kind of a power cannot be good for the self-confidence of a growing girl. What's more, it looks like her pageant mom put her on a strict diet, which can be justified by her social media presence, because fun-sized with Little Cricket has been Emma's claim to fame so far in the story. If we were to take the size shifting away, Emma shows all the classic signs of a bulimia patient. Her face is constantly bloated and puffy in appearance, which only increases as the series goes on. She complains about teeth enamel in episode 2, which happens because frequent vomiting corrodes the enamel layer on your teeth. She constantly denies labeling her eating habits as a disorder because it's how she gets small. And yet, she's completely humiliated when her secret is revealed to the college, because deep down, she thinks she's bulimic as well. What makes things even worse is that it looks like Emma's mom is the one who has made her this way, and we bet that if it were up to her, she'd rather just lead a normal life with some lame power not linked to her digestive system. Emma really struggles with the fact that her superpowers have basically given her an eating disorder, but that might change by the end of the first season. She has become increasingly confident in herself and her own abilities in the first 4 episodes themselves, going from the girl whose life goal was to have a 3-way to a girl who broke into the woods and then subdued one of its most powerful detainees, someone whom the series confirmed to be stronger than Golden Boy. Emma Mayer is already a hero, but she just needs to realize it for herself. Besides, when you're a soup, you don't just get a unique ability, all your base states are enhanced beyond human comprehension, and that was proven by Tech Knight's appearance in episode 4. His interrogation scene with Marie was the perfect demonstration of how a soup can enhance their most basic abilities to a level where they can easily tell when someone is lying. And if a guy who literally humps every hole he can find can do that, then someone as brave and courageous as Emma Mayer should be able to handle it no problem. She could also come to terms with what she's got by connecting with Sam more as their dynamic unfurls in its romantic direction. But that's conjecture on our part. Emma's power is not something that can be activated in a pinch like Homelander's. She puts her body, mind, and emotions under extreme stress every time she uses her powers, because it directly conflicts with the eating disorder she is trying to desperately deny she has. Realistically, if she were to keep living the way she is right now, she might die before she even gets to have that 3-way, and that's real talk. But something tells us she won't, and that she'll kick bulimia's ass while she's at it as well. Marvelous verdict. As for this video, however, we're afraid this is all we've got for you guys. Out of all the characters we've seen in Gen V so far, Emma is our personal favorite because she's just so relatable all the time. Lizzie Broadway has knocked her portrayal out of the park, and episode 5 can't come fast enough for us. But for now, we'd like to hear what you guys think. So let us know how you're feeling about Gen V and Emma down in the comment section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe because we know you enjoy the content, and turn that notification bell to always because you know you'll keep coming back for more. But until then, have a great one, and we'll see you guys next time.